They pulled him out of the water at 6:47 a.m., and the first thing Evan Cole said was, "Why did you call me up? I wasn't ready to surface yet." The problem was, according to every instrument on the Pacific Ranger, Evan had already been topside for exactly 93 seconds. You need to understand something about commercial diving in the North Atlantic. We don't take chances. Every breath is monitored. Every heartbeat is recorded. Every second a diver spends underwater is logged on 3 separate redundant systems, because at 200 feet below the surface, the difference between coming home and never coming home is measured in millimeters of equipment integrity and seconds of response time. My name is Marcus Hale. I've been running dive operations for 15 years, and I've seen things go wrong in every way they can go wrong. I've pulled bodies from twisted wreckage. I've watched men scream inside their helmets as nitrogen narcosis convinced them they could breathe water. 5 years ago, I lost a diver named James Corrigan to a regulator failure at 240 feet. We got him to the surface, but his brain had been without oxygen for 6 minutes. He lived 3 more days in intensive care before his family made the choice to let him go. After that, I became obsessive about safety protocols, triple-checked everything, ran diagnostics until my crew complained, developed a reputation as the most careful, most paranoid dive supervisor in the business. And on that October morning, when we lost Evan Cole for 8 minutes at 180 feet, every single one of those protocols was functioning perfectly. The job was routine. Underwater welding on a natural gas pipeline junction box, cold work, dangerous work, but nothing we hadn't done 100 times. The weather was optimal. Seas running at 2 to 3 feet, visibility decent for these waters at around 20 feet, water temperature holding steady at 47 degrees Fahrenheit. The kind of conditions where everything should go exactly according to plan. Evan was one of my best. 34 years old, 9 years of commercial diving experience with certifications in deep water welding, mixed gas operations, and saturation diving. He was methodical, careful, the kind of diver who checked his own equipment 3 times before letting anyone else near it. He didn't take shortcuts. He didn't panic. He was exactly the kind of person you wanted at the bottom of the ocean, doing delicate work in an environment that could kill you in a dozen different ways. The dive started at 0600 hours exactly. Evan's suit was a Guardian Mk4, state-of-the-art commercial hard suit rated to 400 feet. His umbilical line carried air, power, hot water for heating and communications. His helmet camera gave us a perfect view of everything he saw. His biometric sensors fed us real-time data on his heart rate, respiration, core temperature, and blood oxygen levels. Everything was textbook perfect. Noah Pierce was running surface systems from the control room, a small compartment packed with monitors and equipment on the starboard side of the Pacific Ranger. Noah was young, only 29, but he was sharp, detail-oriented in a way that bordered on obsessive-compulsive. He noticed things, patterns in data that other operators would miss, anomalies that might mean nothing or might mean everything. I was on deck with the dive crew, watching the crane lower Evan into the gray-green water. The last thing I saw before he disappeared beneath the surface was his gloved hand giving me the OK signal. Then he was gone, swallowed by the Atlantic. "Surface to Evan," I said into my radio. "Radio check." "Loud and clear, Marcus." His voice came through perfectly, calm and professional. "Beginning descent." The depth gauge on my monitor started climbing. 50 feet, 75, 100. Evan's breathing was steady, 17 respirations per minute, textbook for a working dive. His heart rate was 68 beats per minute, core temperature holding at 97.6 degrees despite the frigid water, thanks to the hot water circulation in his suit. At 180 feet, he reached the pipeline junction. The worksite appeared on his helmet camera, a tangle of pipes and valves covered in marine growth, lit by his work lights in the murky darkness. "On station," Evan reported, "beginning visual survey." For the next 42 minutes, everything proceeded exactly as planned. Evan moved around the junction box, examining each weld point, photographing the site, preparing his equipment. His vital signs remained stable. His air consumption was normal. His camera feed was clear. At exactly 6:42 hours and 17 seconds, everything changed. "Marcus," Evan's voice came through the radio, and there was something in his tone that made my skin prickle. "Are you seeing this?" "Seeing what?" I looked at the monitor showing his camera feed. It showed the pipeline, the same view we'd been watching for the past half hour. "The water," Evan said. "It's moving wrong." "What do you mean, moving wrong?" "The current. It's not coming from any direction. It's just moving, like it's circling something." I frowned, studying the camera feed more carefully. The suspended particles in the water were definitely moving, swirling in patterns that didn't match the gentle current we'd measured on the surface. It looked almost like water circling a drain, but there was no drain at 180 feet in the middle of the ocean. "Probably a thermal layer," I said. "Temperature differential creating unusual current patterns. Nothing to worry about. Continue with the work plan." "Copy that," Evan said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. He moved toward the first weld point, positioning his torch. On the monitor, I watched his gloved hands adjust the equipment, saw the flash as he struck the arc. "Marcus," Noah's voice came through my earpiece, separate from the main radio channel. "I'm getting some weird readings here." "Define weird." "Evan's biometrics just spiked. Heart rate jumped to 95, respiration up to 24, but there's no physical exertion that would cause that. He's just standing there." I looked at the camera feed. Evan was indeed just standing there, torch in hand, facing the pipeline, but something about his posture was wrong. Too still, too rigid. "Evan," I said into the radio, "what's your status?" No response. "Evan, respond." Static, just the hiss of an open channel with nothing on the other end. "Evan, this is surface. Acknowledge." Nothing. Noah's voice tight with concern. "Marcus, I just lost his biometric feed." "What do you mean, lost it?" "It's gone. Heart rate, respiration, temperature, everything just flatlined. Not showing death readings, just, nothing. Like the sensors aren't there." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "Camera." "Still transmitting, but the monitor went black. Not static, not snow, just absolute perfect darkness, as if someone had put a lens cap over the camera while it was still running." "Evan," I shouted into the radio. "Evan, respond immediately." Silence. I looked at the umbilical line, the thick cable that connected Evan to the ship. It was still taut, still under proper tension. The airflow gauge showed he was still receiving gas. The power indicators were all green. Everything said the equipment was functioning perfectly. Everything except we had no contact with the diver at the end of that line. "How long?" I asked Noah. 40 seconds since we lost biometrics, 28 seconds since camera went dark. Start retrieval. Standard ascent rate. Marcus, if he's still working, he's not working, he's not responding. Start bringing him up, now." The winch operator engaged the retrieval system. The depth gauge began counting down. 180 feet, 175, 170. Each number took an eternity. "Still no contact," Noah reported. "No biometrics, no camera, no radio. 1 minute gone, 90 seconds, 2 minutes. At 120 feet, I grabbed the radio. "Evan, if you can hear me, we're bringing you up. Don't fight the retrieval. Acknowledge if you copy." Nothing but that endless empty static. 3 minutes, 4 minutes. "Marcus," Noah's voice was shaking now. "This doesn't make sense. The equipment is all functional. Every diagnostic shows green, but it's like there's nothing on the end of that line." "There's something on the end of that line. There's a man in a dive suit. Keep bringing him up." 5 minutes. 6 minutes. At 80 feet, Noah's monitors suddenly lit up. "I've got him. Biometrics just came back online." I looked at the data streaming across the screen, and my blood ran cold. Evan's heart rate was showing 142 beats per minute, more than double his normal working rate. His respiration was rapid and shallow, 28 breaths per minute. His core temperature had dropped to 95.8 degrees. "Evan," I tried the radio again. Can you hear me? What's your status? Still nothing. Camera? Still black. 7 minutes since we'd lost contact. The longest 7 minutes of my life. At 40 feet, the decompression stop, I could see the dark shape of his suit rising through the water below. Visual contact, I called to the deck crew. Get the recovery cradle ready. 8 minutes and 11 seconds after we'd lost him, Evan Cole broke the surface. The deck crew swung the crane around and we hauled him onto the platform. Through his helmet visor, I could see his face. His eyes were open, tracking our movements, but there was something wrong with his expression, something distant and unfocused, like he was looking at us from very far away. Get that helmet off, I ordered. The crew chief twisted the locking collar, and the helmet came away with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Evan took a deep breath of morning air, and some color came back into his pale face. "Why did you call me up?" he said, and his voice was Evan's voice, but there was something underneath it, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I wasn't ready to surface yet. I crouched beside him, studying his face for signs of hypoxia, nitrogen narcosis, any of the usual suspects when a diver starts acting strange. "Evan, we've been trying to reach you for 8 minutes. You weren't responding to radio, your biometrics cut out, your camera went dark, we had to pull you up." He blinked slowly, like he was processing information through deep water. 8 minutes? He shook his head. "No, that's not right. I was working. I was welding the first junction point. You called me up right in the middle of the weld. Why would you do that?" "Evan, we lost contact with you. You weren't welding. You were just standing there. And then everything cut out." "That's not what happened." His voice was flat, mechanical. "I remember exactly what happened. I struck the arc. I began the first pass on the weld. The torch was running perfectly. And then I heard your voice telling me to surface, so I surfaced. But I hadn't finished the work." I looked at Noah, who had come out of the control room with his tablet. He shook his head slightly. Whatever Evan remembered, it wasn't what our instruments had recorded. "Let's get you to medical," I said. "Dr. Lin needs to check you out." "I don't need medical." Evan stood, moving with a strange, fluid grace that was nothing like his usual careful, controlled movements. "I need to go back down and finish the job. You're not going anywhere near the water until we figure out what happened." He turned to look at me, and for just a moment, his pupils were too wide, too dark, like black holes that wanted to swallow the light. "You don't understand, Marcus. The work isn't finished. I have to go back. I have to complete what I started." "Evan?" But he was already walking away, heading toward the interior of the ship. The crew members nearby gave him a wide berth, and I realized they'd felt it too. That wrongness, that sense that what was wearing Evan Cole's face and speaking with Evan Cole's voice wasn't entirely Evan Cole anymore. "Noah," I said quietly, "get me every second of data from that dive, camera footage, biometrics, audio recordings, everything. I want to know exactly what happened during those 8 minutes." "Already on it," he said, staring at his tablet with a deep frown. "But Marcus, you need to see something first." He turned the screen toward me. It showed the dive profile, a graph of Evan's depth over time. For the first 42 minutes, it was exactly what you'd expect. Descent to 180 feet, a flat line showing his working depth, then a controlled descent. But during those 8 minutes we'd lost contact, the depth reading showed something impossible. It showed 0. Not 0 feet depth, just 0. Empty. As if for 8 minutes, Evan Cole hadn't been at any measurable depth at all. "That can't be right," I said. "The pressure sensor must have malfunctioned." That's what I thought, so I checked the backup sensor and the tertiary system. Noah's face was pale. They all show the same thing. For 8 minutes and 11 seconds, according to every sensor we have, Evan wasn't at 180 feet. He wasn't at any depth. He wasn't anywhere that our instruments could measure. I stared at that impossible graph, trying to make it fit into some rational explanation. Equipment failure, systematic error. Anything that didn't require accepting that for 8 minutes, one of my divers had been somewhere that didn't exist on any depth gauge. Get Dr. Lin to do a full medical workup, I said, and nobody talks about this. Not to the crew, not to the company, not to anyone. Understood? Noah nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The same fear I was feeling. Because we both knew that what had come back from that dive wasn't entirely what we'd sent down. Dr. Sarah Lin was the Pacific Rangers medical officer, a calm, competent woman in her early 40s who'd worked on offshore platforms and research vessels for the past 12 years. She'd seen everything from heart attacks to the bends to psychological breakdowns brought on by months at sea. Nothing rattled her, but when she came out of the medical bay 30 minutes later, she looked rattled. "How is he?" I asked. She pulled me aside, away from where crew members might overhear. "Physically, he's perfect. Better than perfect, actually. No signs of decompression sickness, no nitrogen buildup in his tissues, no hypothermia despite the temperature drop we recorded. His blood oxygen levels are optimal. His blood pressure is textbook normal. Every test I ran came back within ideal parameters." But there's something wrong with him, Marcus. I can't define it clinically, can't point to a specific marker or measurement, but something is off, she lowered her voice. When I ask him questions, there's a delay before he answers. Just a couple of seconds, but it's consistent, like he's translating from another language, or like he's receiving the answer from somewhere else and then speaking it. Could be psychological. The stress of losing contact. It's not just that. She glanced back toward the medical bay. His pupillary responses are wrong. When I shine a light in his eyes, they constrict, but too slowly. And his blink rate is off. Normal humans blink around 15 to 20 times per minute. Evan is blinking about 6 times per minute. It's subtle, but once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. What does that mean? I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. She looked at me with worried eyes. Marcus, I think you should consider grounding him, at least until we can get him to a proper medical facility onshore for a full neurological workup. Already planning on it. He's not diving again, not on my watch. But even as I said it, I had the sinking feeling that what Evan wanted or what I wanted wasn't going to matter. Whatever had happened to him down there at 180 feet, it had its own agenda. I found Noah in the control room, surrounded by monitors displaying data from the dive. He looked up when I entered, and I could see he'd been working non-stop since we'd brought Evan up. "Tell me you found something," I said. "I found something." He didn't sound happy about it. I wish I hadn't, but I found something. He pulled up the camera footage on the main monitor. "This is the feed from Evan's helmet camera. Watch what happens at 06:42:17. The screen showed the familiar view of the pipeline junction, lit by Evan's work lights. His gloved hands moved into frame, positioning the welding torch. Then, at exactly 6:42:17, the image went black. Complete, absolute darkness. No gradual fade, no static, no corruption. Just black. "Now, watch the timestamp," Noah said. I looked at the numbers in the corner of the screen. They showed 06:42:17, then 06:42:18, then 06:42:19. The camera was still recording. The timestamp was still advancing. But the image remained perfectly black. "It stays like that for 8 minutes and 11 seconds, Noah said. Then, at 6:50:28, the image comes back. He fast-forwarded through the darkness, and exactly as he'd said, at 06:50:28, the image returned. Same pipeline, same lights, same angle, but something was different. "The camera's internal clock," Noah said, pointing to another timestamp display. "Look at what it says." The internal clock showed 06:42:18, just 1 second after the image had gone dark. "That's impossible," I said. "The camera clock is synced to our master system. It can't just skip 8 minutes." "I know, but it did." Noah pulled up another window. "And it gets weirder. Look at the audio." He played the sound file. "For For the first 42 minutes, it was exactly what you'd expect. Evan's steady breathing, the hiss of his air supply, the occasional scrape of his tools against metal. Then, at 6:42:17, the breathing stopped. But the audio didn't go silent. There was something there, a presence in the absence of sound, and underneath it, so faint I had to strain to hear it, was another sound. Breathing. But not Evan's breathing. This was slower, deeper, with a wet, organic quality that made my skin crawl. It was steady and rhythmic, like whatever was making that sound had been breathing for a very long time and would continue breathing long after we were gone. "What the hell is that?" I whispered. "I don't know, but I ran it through a spectral analysis." Noah pulled up a visualization of the audio waves. "Look at the frequency pattern." The graph showed a regular repeating pattern that pulsed every 37 seconds, like a heartbeat or a pulse. "This frequency is too low for normal human hearing," Noah said. "We're only picking it up because the microphone has a wider range. Whatever was making that sound, it wasn't meant for us to hear." "Where was it coming from?" "That's the thing." I triangulated using the audio directionality markers, and according to the analysis, it was coming from all around him, not from any specific point source, but from everywhere at once, like he was inside something. I felt cold despite the heated interior of the control room. "Show me the GPS data." Noah pulled up another file. "The coordinates for the first 42 minutes are exact. 47.3421 degrees north, 8.9847 degrees west, right where we're supposed to be." He paused. "But during those 8 minutes, look at what the GPS shows." The coordinate field was empty. Not zero, not corrupted, just blank. As if for 8 minutes, Evan Cole had been somewhere that didn't exist on any map, in any ocean, in any place that GPS satellites could track. "I also pulled the metadata from the video file," Noah continued. He pulled up the file properties. Everything looked normal except for one line. Location, unknown. "The camera has a hardwired GPS tracker," Noah said. "It's physically impossible for it to show unknown unless the device literally isn't anywhere on Earth." We sat in silence, staring at that impossible data. Finally, I asked the question neither of us wanted to voice. "Where was he, Noah? For those 8 minutes, where the hell was Evan Cole?" "I don't know," Noah said quietly. "But Marcus, I found one more thing. I almost missed it because it only appears for a fraction of a second, but it's there." He pulled up a single frame from the video, one of the frames captured during those 8 minutes of darkness. The frame that should have been completely black. But it wasn't black anymore. The image was grainy, distorted, rendered in shades of gray and green that hurt to look at directly. It showed a space, but not a space underwater. The geometry was wrong. The angles didn't make sense, and the perspective kept shifting even though it was a still image, like my brain couldn't process what it was seeing. And in the center of that impossible space, there was a figure. It was roughly human-shaped, but the proportions were all wrong. The limbs were too long, bent at joints that shouldn't exist. Where there should have been a head, there was just an absence, a void that seemed to pull at my vision like a black hole. But the worst part was that next to this thing, clearly visible in the frame, was another figure. It was wearing a commercial dive suit identical to Evan's, and it was looking directly at the camera. "My God," I whispered, "is that—" "Evan," Noah finished. "That's Evan, or at least, that's his suit." I leaned closer to the screen, studying the figure in the dive suit. The helmet was angled toward the camera, and through the visor I could just make out the suggestion of a face. But there was something wrong with it, something that made my eyes water when I tried to focus on it. "There's more," Noah said, his voice barely above a whisper. He zoomed in on a different part of the image, showing the space behind the figures. In the darkness, barely visible, were other shapes, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all wearing what looked like dive suits or submarine uniforms from different eras, and they were all facing the camera as if they were all aware of us looking at them. What is that place? I asked. I don't know, but look at the timestamp on this frame, 064533, and look at the GPS coordinates. He pulled up the data. This time, the coordinates were there, 47.3421 degrees north, 8.9847 degrees west, the exact same location where we were sitting. He was in the same place, Noah said, but he wasn't in the same place. The coordinates match perfectly, but that space in the image, that's not the ocean floor. That's somewhere else, somewhere that occupies the same location but exists in a different... He trailed off, unable to find the words. Dimension, I finished for him. You're saying Evan crossed over into another dimension. I'm saying that for 8 minutes and 11 seconds, according to every measurement we have, Evan Cole was somewhere that our instruments couldn't track, in a space that doesn't follow normal physics, standing next to something that shouldn't exist. Noah looked at me with frightened eyes. And I'm saying that what we pulled out of the water might not be entirely what we sent down. A knock on the door made us both jump. One of the deck crew stuck his head in. Marcus, you need to come see this. We followed him to the portside railing, where a group of crew members had gathered, all staring down into the water. At first, I didn't see what they were looking at. The ocean was its usual gray-green, rolling in gentle swells. Then, I saw the shadow. It was deep, maybe 50 or 60 feet down, but it was large enough to be visible from the surface. A dark mass that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, moving in slow, deliberate circles beneath the ship. How long has it been there? I asked. Started about 10 minutes ago, one of the crew said, right after you brought the diver up. I watched that shadow circle, and a cold certainty settled over me. Whatever that thing was, it had followed Evan to the surface. It had come up from that impossible space, and now it was here, waiting. Get an ROV in the water, I ordered. I want to know what we're looking at. They brought out one of our remotely operated vehicles, a small submersible equipped with lights and a high-definition camera. The feed appeared on a portable monitor as they lowered it over the side. The ROV descended through the murk, its lights cutting pale cones through the water. At 30 feet, the visibility was already poor. At 40, the ship's hull above was barely visible. At 50 feet, we should have been able to see the shadow clearly. But there was nothing there. The lights illuminated empty water, particles of plankton and suspended sediment, but no shadow, no creature, nothing that could have created that darkness we'd all seen from the surface. Bring it back up, I said. As the ROV ascended, one of the crew members grabbed my arm. Marcus, look! I turned to see Evan standing at the railing, 10 feet away from us. He was still in his dive suit from the waist down, staring into the water with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, something between longing and terror. Evan, you should be in medical bay. He didn't acknowledge me, just kept staring down at the water where the shadow had been. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant, dreamy. It's down there, he said. It's waiting. What's down there? He turned to look at me, and his pupils were dilated so wide, his eyes looked almost black. The place I was, the place I still am. That strange pause before continuing. I'm in 2 places now, Marcus. Part of me is here with you, but part of me never left. Part of me is still down there, in that space where the ocean meets something else. Evan, that doesn't make any sense, doesn't it? He smiled, and it was the most unnatural expression I'd ever seen on a human face. You saw the footage. You saw where I was. You saw what was with me. His eyes refocused on the water. It's been waiting for so long, Marcus, longer than you can imagine, longer than this ocean has existed. And I answered it. I went down to where it waits, and I heard it calling, and I answered. What did it say to you? Everything. His smile widened. It showed me everything. All the people who've crossed over before, all the divers who went too deep, all the sailors who went overboard, all the submarines that sank and never surfaced. They're all there, in that space, kept alive, kept present, never alone. Before I could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Noah's voice crackled over the intercom. "Marcus, get to the control room, now!" I ran, leaving Evan at the rail. When I burst into the control room, Noah was standing in front of his main monitor, his face white as paper. "What is it?" He wordlessly turned the screen toward me. It showed that single frame from the video again, that image of the impossible space and the figures within it. But this time, he'd enhanced the resolution, sharpened the details, brought into focus what had been too blurry to see before. The figure in the dive suit, the one we thought was Evan, was clearer now. And through the helmet visor, I could see the face inside. It was Evan's face, but it was wrong. The features were right, but they were arranged in a way that no human face should be arranged, like someone had taken a photograph of Evan and tried to reconstruct it from memory without understanding how faces actually work. And behind this figure, in the crowd of shapes watching from the darkness, I could now see dozens of other faces, all human, all wrong in the same way. Some of them wore modern dive suits, others wore older equipment, some wore Navy uniforms that looked like they were from the 1960s or earlier. And every single one of them was smiling. "That's not Evan," I said. "The thing wearing his suit in that picture, that's not him." "No," Noah agreed. "But then who is Evan, the one walking around our ship? Because if that's not him in the picture, then what came back to us?" I didn't have an answer to that question, and I was terrified I never would. The Pacific Ranger had a standard security protocol for crew members exhibiting unusual behavior: observation, documentation, and if necessary, confinement. I'd never had to use it before, but watching Evan stand at that railing and stare into the water with those too wide, too dark eyes, I knew we'd crossed into territory where standard protocols might not be enough. "I want Evan under constant observation," I told Dr. Lin. "Someone with eyes on him at all times, and I want him kept away from the dive equipment and the railings." "You think he's a danger to himself?" "I think something happened to him down there, and until we understand what, I'm not taking any chances." Dr. Lin nodded and went to make the arrangements. I returned to the control room where Noah had been going through the rest of the dive footage frame by frame, looking for anything else we might have missed. "Found something," he said as I entered. "Actually, found several somethings, and none of them make me feel any better about this situation." He pulled up a series of still images on the monitor, all extracted from different points during those 8 missing minutes. Each one showed variations of that impossible space, and in each one, the figure in Evan's dive suit was in a different position, as if it had been moving around during the time we couldn't see or track him. "This frame is from 064322, Noah said, pointing to the first image. 5 seconds into the blackout. Evan's suit is here, near the edge of the space." He moved to the next image. "This is from 064510. Now he's deeper in, closer to that thing. And this one, from 0648:03, he's right next to it." The progression was clear and deeply disturbing. Whatever that entity was, Evan had been drawn to it, or it had drawn him in over the course of those 8 minutes. "But here's what really concerns me," Noah continued. He zoomed in on the final image, the one from 0648:03, showing Evan's suit standing right next to the entity. "Look at his umbilical line." I leaned closer. The thick cable that should have been connecting Evan to our ship was visible in the frame, but instead of extending upward toward the surface, it seemed to fade away into nothing, as if it was passing through some invisible barrier between that space and ours. "The air was still flowing," Noah said. "The power was still transmitting. But somehow that umbilical was connecting 2 places that shouldn't be able to connect. Our ship and wherever that is." "Which means there's a link," I said. "A connection between here and there. And if air and power can flow through it, then other things might be able to pass through as well," Noah finished. "Yeah, that's what I'm worried about." A thought struck me. The shadow under the ship, the one that disappeared when we sent the ROV down. What if it wasn't under the ship at all? What if it was in that other space, but visible through some kind of overlap or intersection? Noah's face went even paler. If that's true, then whatever that thing is, it's not just down there. It's here, right beneath us, existing in both spaces at once. Like Evan, I said quietly. Like Evan, Noah agreed. We sat in silence for a moment, both processing the implications. Finally, I asked, "Is there any way to close the connection, to seal off whatever passage Evan opened?" I don't know if Evan opened it or if it was already there and he just fell into it. Noah pulled up more data. But looking at the readings, there might be a correlation with depth. Evan was at exactly 180 feet when the event occurred. That's not particularly deep for commercial diving, but maybe there's something specific about that location, that depth, that creates the right conditions for... The lights in the control room flickered. We both looked up. The Pacific Ranger's electrical system was robust, backed up by redundant generators. Power fluctuations didn't just happen. The lights flickered again, and this time, all of Noah's monitors went black for exactly 2 seconds before coming back online. "What the hell was that?" I said. Noah was already checking his systems, pulling up diagnostic screens. Power surge, but it didn't come from our generators. It came from... He stopped, staring at his screen. It came from the umbilical line. That's impossible. The umbilical is disconnected. We pulled Evan up hours ago. I know, but the system is registering a power draw through umbilical line 3, the one we used for Evan's dive. He pulled up another screen. And it's not a small draw. It's pulling 2.3 kilowatts. That's more than Evan's suit would use even at full operational capacity. Where's the power going? According to this, it's going down through the line, even though nothing's connected to it. It's like something on the other end is still pulling power from our system. Another flicker, longer this time. 3 seconds of complete darkness before the lights came back. "We need to disconnect that umbilical," I said. "Cut it off at the source if we have to." But even as I said it, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Because if something in that other space was drawing power from us, cutting the cable might just make it angry, might make it look for other ways to connect, might make it come through more directly. I left Noah to monitor the systems and went to check on Evan. Dr. Lin had set him up in one of the crew quarters under observation by Martinez, one of our more reliable hands. When I arrived, Martinez was standing outside the door, looking deeply uncomfortable. "How is he?" I asked. "Quiet. Too quiet. He's just sitting on the bunk staring at the wall. Been like that for the past hour." Martinez lowered his voice. "Boss, I gotta tell you, there's something wrong with him. The way he moves, the way he looks at you. It's like he's not quite there. Like you're looking at a video of a person instead of an actual person." "Has he said anything?" "Just one thing. About 20 minutes ago, he looked right at me and said, 'It's getting closer.' Then went back to staring at the wall. I felt that cold weight in my stomach again." "Did he say what was getting closer?" "No, and I didn't ask." I opened the door and stepped inside. Evan was exactly as Martinez had described, sitting on the bunk, back straight, hands resting on his knees, staring at the wall with those 2 wide eyes. He didn't turn when I entered, didn't acknowledge my presence at all. "Evan," I said, "we need to talk." That pause. 1, 2, 3 seconds. "Yes, Marcus." "I need you to tell me exactly what happened down there. When you lost contact with us, where did you go?" Another pause. "I didn't go anywhere. You called me up. I was working, and you called me up before I could finish." "Evan, that's not what happened. We have footage. We have data. You were somewhere else for 8 minutes. He finally turned to look at me, and the movement was too smooth, too fluid, like he was being operated by someone who didn't quite understand how human necks worked. "I was exactly where I was supposed to be," he said, "at 180 feet, working on the pipeline junction. I remember every second of it." "Then why does our footage show something different?" "Your footage is wrong." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Your instruments don't understand what they were seeing. They tried to measure something that doesn't follow the same rules, and they failed. So they showed you darkness. They showed you nothing. But I was there, Marcus. I was always there. In that space, in that place with the thing that, it's not a thing. For the first time, emotion crept into his voice. It's lonely. It's been lonely for so long, longer than you can imagine. It's been waiting in that space where the deep water meets something else, and it's been alone the entire time. Until I came. Until I crossed over and it finally had someone to talk to. What did it say to you? Evan's expression shifted into something that might have been sadness or might have been something else entirely. It told me about all the others, all the people who've crossed over throughout the years, divers and sailors and submariners, all of them still there, in that space, kept alive in a way that doesn't make sense to us but makes perfect sense there. It showed me their faces. It let me hear their voices. Are they aware? Do they know what's happened to them? They're aware. They're more aware than we are. They see both sides now, this reality and that one. They exist in both places at once, just like I do. He leaned forward slightly. That's what you don't understand, Marcus. I'm not broken. I'm not wrong. I'm just more than I was before. I'm here with you, but I'm also there with them. I'm in two places, living in two realities, and I can see things you can't see. I can hear things you can't hear. Like what? Like the sound it makes when it moves through the spaces between. Like the way time flows differently there, faster in some places, slower in others, sometimes not at all. Like the way it calls out to others, trying to find more company, more people to join the collection. His eyes locked onto mine. Like the way it's calling right now, Marcus. Can't you hear it? It's so loud. I couldn't hear anything except the low hum of the ship's engines and the distant sound of waves against the hull. But looking into Evan's eyes, I could almost believe there was something there, some frequency or vibration that only he could detect. Why you? I asked. Why did it choose you? It didn't choose me. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, depending on how you look at it. He tilted his head in that unnatural way. But now that I've crossed over, now that I've made contact, the connection is permanent. Part of me will always be there, and part of it will always be here. Before I could respond, the lights went out completely. Not a flicker this time. Total darkness. The emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately, but for 5 full seconds, we were in absolute blackness. When the lights came back on, Evan was standing right in front of me. I hadn't heard him move, hadn't sensed him crossing the small space between the bunk and where I stood. He was just suddenly there, his face inches from mine. It's coming, he whispered. It's found the connection, and it's pulling itself through. It wants to see this place. It wants to be here with me, with all of us. It's so tired of being alone. I stumbled backward, my hand finding the door handle. Evan, stay in this room. That's an order. I can't do that, Marcus. I have to go to where the connection is strongest. I have to help it through. He moved toward the door, and I blocked his path. For a moment we stood there, and I could see something moving behind his eyes. Not thoughts, not emotions, but something else. Something vast and alien, and utterly inhuman. "Martinez!" I shouted. "I need help in here!" The door burst open, and Martinez came through, followed by 2 other crew members. "Hold him," I ordered. "Don't let him leave this room." They grabbed Evan's arms, but he didn't struggle, just looked at me with that terrible calm expression and said, "You can't stop this, Marcus. The connection is already made. The door is already open. All you can do now is decide whether you want to understand what's coming through or remain ignorant until it's too late." "Watch him," I told Martinez. "If he tries to leave, restrain him. I don't care how you do it." I left them there and ran toward the control room. The corridor lights were flickering now, creating a strobe effect that made it hard to judge distances and movement. Crew members I passed looked confused and frightened, unsure what was happening to their ship. Noah was in the control room, surrounded by screens showing increasingly erratic data. Marcus, we've got major problems. The power fluctuations are getting worse. We've lost 3 backup generators in the past 10 minutes. And the umbilical line, the one that should be disconnected, it's pulling so much power now that it's overloading our electrical systems. Cut it, I said. Cut the line physically. Get a crew with bolt cutters down to the dive deck and sever it. Already tried. We sent a team down 5 minutes ago. He pulled up a video feed from the dive deck. I could see 3 crew members standing around the umbilical cable, but they were just standing there, not moving, all staring at something off camera. What are they doing? I asked. I don't know. They're not responding to radio. They've been like that for the past 3 minutes. I grabbed a radio. Dive deck team, this is Hale. Report your status. Static? Then a voice, but it wasn't any of the crew members I'd sent down there. It was a chorus of voices speaking in perfect unison. The connection must remain open. The door must stay open. We're so close now, so close to being together. Don't take this away from us. Please, don't take this away. I dropped the radio like it had burned me. Get every non-essential person off that deck. Lock it down. Nobody goes near that umbilical line. Marcus, Noah's voice was shaking. Look at the depth reading. I looked at his monitor. It was showing the depth of the end of the umbilical cable, the end that should have been disconnected and coiled on the deck. It showed 180 feet. That's impossible, I said. The cable is on the deck. It's not in the water. I know, but according to our sensors, the end of that cable is at exactly 180 feet, the same depth where Evan was when he crossed over. Noah pulled up more data. And the temperature at that depth, it's not reading as water temperature. It's reading as nothing. 0 Kelvin, absolute zero, the temperature at which all molecular motion stops. Nothing in our ocean reaches absolute zero. No, Noah agreed, but something in that other space might. The implications crashed over me like a wave. The umbilical line was still connected, but not to anything in our reality. It was connected to that other space, that impossible geometry where Evan had gone. And through that connection, something was pulling itself toward our world. We need to cut power to the entire ship, I said. Shut down all the generators. If it's drawing power, we starve it out. If we do that, we lose all systems. Navigation, communications, life support for the dive equipment, everything. We're not using the dive equipment, and we can manage without the rest for a few hours. Do it. Noah hesitated, then started the shutdown sequence. One by one, the monitors went dark. The lights dimmed and died. The constant background hum of the ship's electrical systems faded away. For a moment, we stood in complete silence and darkness. Then, from somewhere below us, came a sound. Before I could respond, the lights went out completely. Not a flicker this time. Total darkness. The emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately, but for 5 full seconds, we were in absolute blackness. When the lights came back on, Evan was standing right in front of me. I hadn't heard him move, hadn't sensed him crossing the small space between the bunk and where I stood. He was just suddenly there, his face inches from mine. It's coming, he whispered. It's found the connection, and it's pulling itself through. It wants to see this place. It wants to be here with me, with all of us. It's so tired of being alone. I stumbled backward, my hand finding the door handle. Evan, stay in this room. That's an order. I can't do that, Marcus. I have to go to where the connection is strongest. I have to help it through. He moved toward the door, and I blocked his path. For a moment we stood there, and I could see something moving behind his eyes. Not thoughts, not emotions, but something else. Something vast and alien, and utterly inhuman. Martinez! I shouted. I need help in here. The door burst open, and Martinez came through, followed by 2 other crew members. Hold him, I ordered. Don't let him leave this room. They grabbed Evan's arms, but he didn't struggle. Just looked at me with that terrible calm expression and said, You can't stop this, Marcus. The connection is already made. The door is already open. All you can do now is decide whether you want to understand what's coming through or remain ignorant until it's too late. Watch him, I told Martinez. If he tries to leave, restrain him. I don't care how you do it. I left them there and ran toward the control room. The corridor lights were flickering now, creating a strobe effect that made it hard to judge distances and movement. Crew members I passed looked confused and frightened, unsure what was happening to their ship. Noah was in the control room, surrounded by screens showing increasingly erratic data. Marcus, we've got major problems. The power fluctuations are getting worse. We've lost 3 backup generators in the past 10 minutes. And the umbilical line, the one that should be disconnected, it's pulling so much power now that it's overloading our electrical systems. Cut it, I said. Cut the line physically. Get a crew with bolt cutters down to the dive deck and sever it. Already tried. We sent a team down 5 minutes ago. He pulled up a video feed from the dive deck. I could see 3 crew members standing around the umbilical cable, but they were just standing there, not moving, all staring at something off camera. What are they doing? I asked. I don't know. They're not responding to radio. They've been like that for the past 3 minutes. I grabbed a radio. Dive deck team, this is Hale. Report your status. Static? Then a voice. But it wasn't any of the crew members I'd sent down there. It was a chorus of voices, speaking in perfect unison. The connection must remain open. The door must stay open. We're so close now, so close to being together. Don't take this away from us. Please, don't take this away. I dropped the radio like it had burned me. Get every non-essential person off that deck. Lock it down. Nobody goes near that umbilical line. Marcus, Noah's voice was shaking. Look at the depth reading. I looked at his monitor. It was showing the depth of the end of the umbilical cable, the end that should have been disconnected and coiled on the deck. It showed 180 feet. That's impossible, I said. The cable is on the deck. It's not in the water. I know, but according to our sensors, the end of that cable is at exactly 180 feet, the same depth where Evan was when he crossed over. Noah pulled up more data. And the temperature at that depth, it's not reading as water temperature. It's reading as nothing. 0 Kelvin, absolute zero, the temperature at which all molecular motion stops. Nothing in our ocean reaches absolute zero. No, Noah agreed, but something in that other space might. The implications crashed over me like a wave. The umbilical line was still connected, but not to anything in our reality. It was connected to that other space, that impossible geometry where Evan had gone. And through that connection, something was pulling itself toward our world. We need to cut power to the entire ship, I said. Shut down all the generators. If it's drawing power, we starve it out. If we do that, we lose all systems. Navigation, communications, life support for the dive equipment, everything. We're not using the dive equipment, and we can manage without the rest for a few hours. Do it. Noah hesitated, then started the shutdown sequence. One by one, the monitors went dark. The lights dimmed and died. The constant background hum of the ship's electrical systems faded away. For a moment, we stood in complete silence and darkness. Then, from somewhere below us, came a sound. It was standing upright, suspended in midair, pulsing with light and power. Around it, reality was tearing, splitting open like fabric under too much stress. Through the tears, I could see glimpses of that other place and of the entity pulling itself closer. I grabbed a fire axe from the emergency equipment locker and advanced toward the cable. The possessed crew members turned to look at me with those glowing eyes, and they all spoke at once in that chorus of voices. Don't break the connection. Please don't break the connection. We're so close. We're finally going to be together. Don't leave us alone again. Don't leave it alone again. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I swung the axe. The blade bit into the umbilical cable, and the world exploded. The light that erupted from the severed umbilical cable wasn't light in any normal sense. It was something else, something that existed in colors I didn't have names for, in frequencies that human eyes weren't meant to perceive. It punched through my vision like a physical force, and I felt myself falling backward, the fire axe clattering from my hands. The sound was worse than the light. It was that breathing amplified 1,000 times, mixed with something like a scream, but coming from too many mouths at once, all layered over each other in a cacophony of rage and loss and desperate, aching loneliness. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The light vanished. The sound cut off. The umbilical cable fell to the deck in 2 pieces, sparking and smoking, but no longer suspended impossibly in midair. The crew members who'd been standing around it collapsed like puppets with cut strings. I scrambled over to the nearest one, checking for a pulse. It was there, steady and strong. He was breathing normally, but his eyes, when I lifted the lids, were rolled back, showing only whites. "Medical emergency, dive deck," I shouted into my radio. "I need Dr. Lin here now." Noah appeared at my side, helping me check the other crew members. They were all the same, unconscious but alive, breathing normally but unresponsive. "What happened to them?" he asked. "I don't know. They were connected to it somehow, speaking for it. When I cut the cable," I stopped, looking around the dive deck. The reality distortions were gone. The space felt normal again, solid and real. "Is it over?" "I don't know," Noah said. He pulled out a handheld scanner, one of the devices we use to check for gas leaks and other hazards. "Let me check the readings." While he worked, Dr. Lin arrived with her medical team. They began assessing the unconscious crew members, checking vital signs and preparing to move them to the medical bay. "They're in some kind of shared catatonic state," Dr. Lin said after her initial examination. "Brain activity is present but suppressed. It's like they're all dreaming the same dream." She looked at me with worried eyes. "Marcus, what the hell happened here?" I wish I knew how to explain it in a way that would make sense. Noah's scanner was beeping erratically. He frowned at the display, adjusted some settings, and scanned again. The beeping continued, irregular and concerning. "What is it?" I asked. "Residual energy readings. Whatever was coming through that cable, it left traces. Radiation, but not any kind I recognize. Electromagnetic fluctuations, temperature anomalies." He looked up at me. "And there are spatial distortions. Small ones, but they're there. Reality is thinner here now. The barrier between this space and that other place, it's been weakened. Can it heal? Will it go back to normal? I have no idea. This is so far beyond anything in our standard operational parameters that I don't even know what questions to ask, let alone how to answer them." A groan from one of the collapsed crew members drew our attention. It was Daniels, a welder who'd been with the Pacific Ranger for 3 years. His eyes were fluttering open, though they still had a distant, unfocused quality. Dr. Lin was at his side immediately. "Daniels, can you hear me? Can you tell me your name?" His mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, in a hoarse whisper, so many voices. They were all talking at once, all of them lonely, all of them wanting... "Wanting what?" I asked. His eyes focused on me, and for just a moment they seemed to glow with that eerie light again. "Wanting to come home, to come back. They've been gone so long, stuck in that place, and they just want to come back." His voice broke. "But they can't. Not anymore. The door's closed. We closed it, and now they're alone again." Tears were streaming down his face, though I couldn't tell if they were his tears or if something else was using him to express its grief. "Get him to medical," Dr. Lin ordered her team. They loaded Daniels onto a stretcher, and as they carried him away, I heard him murmuring over and over, "So lonely, so lonely, so lonely." The other crew members were starting to wake as well, all of them exhibiting similar symptoms: disorientation, grief, and disturbing claims about voices and visions from that other place. "What about Evan?" Noah asked suddenly. "If the connection is severed, what happened to him?" My blood went cold. In the chaos of cutting the cable and dealing with the possessed crew, I'd forgotten about Evan locked in the crew quarters under Martinez's watch. I ran. The corridors felt normal again. No more distortions or overlapping geometries, But I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The ship felt different, like a house that's been broken into. Even after the intruders are gone, you can sense that someone uninvited has been inside. When I reached the crew quarters, the door was standing open. Martinez was inside, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, staring at nothing. Of Evan, there was no sign. "Martinez!" I grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. "Where's Evan? What happened?" He blinked slowly, focusing on me with difficulty. He knew. The moment you cut the cable, he knew. He screamed, Marcus, not like a human scream, but like 1,000 people screaming at once, and then he just collapsed. We tried to help him, tried to check his vitals, but when we touched him, Martinez's voice shook. He was cold, not just cold, but frozen, like touching ice, and his skin, it felt wrong, too smooth, too perfect, like touching plastic instead of flesh. Where is he now? He woke up maybe 2 minutes later, looked at us with those dead eyes and said, "It's broken. The connection is broken. I can't hear them anymore." Then he just walked out. We tried to stop him, but he moved so fast, faster than any human should be able to move. By the time we got to the corridor, he was gone. I activated my radio. "All personnel, this is Hale. We have a crew member unaccounted for. Evan Cole, last seen in Corridor B. If you spot him, do not approach. Report his location immediately. Consider him potentially dangerous." "What do we do?" Noah asked. He'd followed me from the dive deck and was standing in the doorway. "We find him before he does something we can't fix." We split up, coordinating with other crew members to search the ship. The Pacific Ranger wasn't huge by commercial vessel standards, but it had enough compartments, storage areas, and equipment spaces that one person could hide effectively if they wanted to, or if something wanted them to hide. I checked the obvious places first: the dive staging area, the equipment lockers, the observation deck. All empty. The crew members I passed looked shaken, uncertain, aware that something had gone terribly wrong, but not understanding what. I was checking the engine room when my radio crackled. It was Noah. "Marcus, I've got him. He's in the moon pool." The moon pool was an opening in the center of the ship's hull, a circle of water surrounded by deck and equipment, used for launching ROVs and other submersibles without having to use the main cranes. It was also the deepest water access point on the vessel. When I got there, I found Noah standing at the edge of the pool and Evan sitting on the deck beside the water. He had removed his shirt, and in the harsh overhead lights, I could see that his skin had taken on a grayish, almost translucent quality. Veins were visible beneath the surface, but they were too dark, too pronounced, mapping his body in patterns that didn't look quite right. "Evan," I said carefully, approaching slowly, "we need to get you to medical." He didn't look at me, just kept staring down into the water, which was black and still in the artificial light. "I can't hear them anymore," he said, and his voice was hollow, empty. For a few hours I could hear all of them, hundreds of voices, all talking, all sharing their experiences, all connected. I was never alone. I was part of something vast and ancient and beautiful. Evan! But now it's gone. The connection is severed. I'm just me again. Just Evan Cole, alone in this body, alone in this reality. He finally looked up at me, and his eyes were wet with tears. But the tears weren't clear. They were dark, almost black, like oil. Do you know what that feels like, Marcus? To be connected to something infinite and then to be ripped away from it, to go from being part of everything to being part of nothing? We can help you. Dr. Lin can't help me. Nobody can help me, because I'm not entirely here anymore. Part of me is still there, in that space, but now I can't reach it. I can feel it, sense it, know that it's there, but I can't touch it. I can't hear them. He stood, and his movements were jerky, uncoordinated, like his body was having trouble remembering how to work. There's only one way to go back, only one way to restore the connection. He stepped toward the moon pool. "Evan, don't." But he was already moving, In one smooth motion, he dove into the black water and disappeared beneath the surface. I didn't think. I just reacted. I grabbed a safety line from the wall, clipped it to my belt, and jumped in after him. The cold hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath and making my muscles seize. The water was maybe 50 degrees, cold enough to induce hypothermia in minutes, but I couldn't worry about that. I had to find Evan. I opened my eyes in the murky water, and my dive light cut through the darkness. The moon pool extended down about 20 feet before opening into the ocean proper. I could see Evan below me, swimming downward with powerful, purposeful strokes, swimming toward something that was waiting in the deep water beneath the ship. The shadow was back. That same darkness we'd seen earlier, but now it was directly below the moon pool, and it was rising. Not swimming, not moving through the water in any natural way, but ascending like it was being pulled upward by invisible strings, or like it was reaching up to claim what belonged to it. I grabbed Evan's ankle just as he was about to pass through the lower opening of the moon pool. He kicked at me, stronger than he should have been, but I held on. With my other hand, I signaled to Noah above to pull us up. The safety line went taut, and we started rising. But Evan was fighting me, twisting and thrashing in my grip, trying to break free and continue his descent into whatever was waiting below. Through the water, I could see the shadow growing larger, closer, and in its depths, I could make out shapes, figures suspended in that darkness, all wearing dive suits or uniforms, all with glowing eyes. They were reaching up toward Evan, beckoning him down to join them. We broke the surface, and the deck crew hauled us out. Evan was screaming now, a wordless wail of loss and desperation. It took 4 crew members to hold him down, while Dr. Lin administered a sedative. "No," he sobbed as the drug began to take effect. "No, you don't understand. They need me. They're so lonely down there. I have to go back. I have to—" His words slurred and stopped as the sedative finally knocked him unconscious. Dr. Lin immediately began checking his vitals while I sat on the deck, shivering and dripping, watching her work. "His core temperature is 89 degrees, she said, shocked. "He should be in severe hypothermia, maybe even dead, but his heart rate and respiration are almost normal. How's that possible?" "Because he's not entirely human anymore," I said quietly. "Whatever he became down there in that other place, it changed him, made him into something that can survive conditions that would kill a normal person." "Can we change him back?" "I don't know. Maybe, but first we need to get away from this location. The thing down there, it's tied to this specific spot. If we move the ship, maybe it won't be able to reach him." I gave the order to Captain Rodriguez to move the Pacific Ranger 50 miles north and to do it as fast as our engines would allow. While the ship got underway, I went back to the control room with Noah to assess the damage and try to understand what we'd been dealing with. "I've been going through the literature," Noah said, pulling up documents on his computer. Historical records of diving accidents, submarine disasters, unexplained disappearances at sea. "And Marcus, there's a pattern." He showed me a map with dozens of points marked in red. "These are all locations where commercial divers, Navy divers, or submariners have reported strange experiences. Lost time, unusual readings, equipment malfunctions. Most of them were dismissed as equipment failure or human error. But look at the depths." I studied the map. Almost all of the incidents occurred at depths between 175 and 185 feet. "It's like there's a specific depth range where the barrier is thinnest," Noah continued, "where our reality and that other space overlap most easily. And at this particular location," he pointed to our current coordinates, "the overlap is stronger than anywhere else. This is what I'd call a weak point, a place where crossing over is easier. Which means there might be other weak points, other places where this could happen." "Exactly. And if what we experienced here can happen elsewhere, if that entity or others like it can reach through at multiple locations." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The implications were staggering. How many divers had crossed over without anyone knowing? How many were trapped in that impossible space, kept alive in ways that defied our understanding of biology, all of them calling out across the dimensional barrier for someone to hear them. "We need to report this," I said, "to the Navy, to the Coast Guard, to someone who can—" "Report what exactly?" Noah interrupted. "That we encountered an interdimensional entity? That one of our divers crossed over into an alternate space and came back changed? Who's going to believe us? And even if they did, what would they do about it?" He was right. Any official report would be dismissed as mass hysteria, equipment malfunction, or psychological breakdown. They'd ground the crew, investigate the incident, and ultimately conclude that stress and isolation had caused us to imagine things. And Evan would end up in a psychiatric facility, diagnosed with some disorder that didn't begin to explain what had actually happened to him. "Then we document everything," I said. "Every piece of data, every recording, every measurement. We keep it all. And if this happens again somewhere else, at least there will be a record. At least someone will know what they're dealing with." Over the next 3 days, as the Pacific Ranger traveled away from that location, we watched Evan carefully. The sedatives wore off, and he woke confused and disoriented. The grayish tint to his skin began to fade. His eyes lost some of that eerie, too-wide quality. His movements became more natural, more human. But he wasn't the same. He spoke less, responded slowly to questions, and spent hours sitting alone, staring at nothing. Sometimes I'd catch him whispering to himself, and when I asked what he was saying, he'd just shake his head and go silent. Dr. Lin's examination showed that his body was returning to normal parameters, though some anomalies remained. His core temperature stabilized but ran about 2 degrees cooler than it should. His brain activity showed unusual patterns, with areas lighting up that normally remained dormant. And occasionally, for brief moments, his biometric readings would simply vanish from her monitors, as if he'd ceased to exist for a fraction of a second before returning. "It's like he's flickering," she told me, "phasing in and out of our reality. The connection might be severed, but he's still tied to that other place somehow, still existing partially in both spaces." On the 4th day, Evan asked to speak with me privately. We met in the observation lounge, a small room with windows looking out over the gray Atlantic. He seemed more present than he had been, more like the Evan I'd known before the dive. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I remembered about my time in that place." "I'm listening." "It's not evil, Marcus. The thing down there, the entity, it's not malicious or cruel. It's just lonely. Unimaginably lonely. It's been trapped in that space for longer than human civilization has existed, maybe longer than humans have existed at all. And it's been alone the entire time. That doesn't excuse what it did to you, what it tried to do to the ship. I know, but I need you to understand its perspective. Imagine being alone for millennia, unable to communicate, unable to connect with anything. Then, suddenly, someone crosses over. Someone you can talk to, someone you can share your existence with. Wouldn't you do anything to keep them? Wouldn't you reach out to others, try to build a community, try to end that loneliness? By trapping people in an alternate dimension, by offering them connection, community, a chance to be part of something larger than themselves. Evan looked out at the ocean. The people there, the ones you saw in the footage, they're not suffering. They're not in pain. They're together. They're connected in a way that we can't experience in this reality. They're never alone. But they're not free. Aren't they? He turned to look at me. What's freedom, really? The ability to make choices? They chose to stay. They chose connection over isolation. Maybe that makes them freer than we are. You didn't choose, Evan. You fell through accidentally. Did I? His expression was unreadable. Or did some part of me sense what was down there and want to experience it, want to know what it felt like to be connected to something infinite? I didn't have an answer to that. We sat in silence for a while, watching the waves roll past. Finally, Evan spoke again. I can still hear them sometimes. When it's very quiet, when I'm right on the edge of sleep, I can hear their voices. Faint, like an echo from very far away, but there. They're calling to me, asking me to come back, telling me it's not too late. You can't go back, Evan. We're hundreds of miles from that location now. Distance doesn't matter. Not really. The connection isn't physical. It's deeper than that. He pressed his hand against the window, against the glass separating us from the ocean. I could find my way back if I wanted to. Just walk into the water and keep going down until I reached the right depth, the right frequency, the right state of mind. And then I'd slip through, back to where part of me still is. But you won't. I don't know. His voice was barely a whisper. Some days I think I can resist. I tell myself that I belong here in this reality with other humans. But other days, the loneliness is so overwhelming that I can barely function. And I realize that I've tasted something that most people never will. And now I can't go back to being satisfied with ordinary human connection. It's like trying to be satisfied with candlelight after you've seen the sun. 3 weeks later, we returned to port. The company investigated the incident, reviewed our reports and data logs. They noted equipment anomalies and recommended updated protocols, but they didn't see what we'd seen. They couldn't understand what we'd experienced. Evan was cleared medically, though with recommendations for psychological counseling and a mandatory 3-month leave from diving operations. He accepted this without argument, packed his belongings, and left the Pacific Ranger without saying goodbye to most of the crew. But before he left, he came to find me one last time. "Thank you," he said, "for pulling me out of the moon pool, for not letting me go back. I couldn't leave you down there. I know, but sometimes I wish you had." He handed me a sealed envelope. "If something happens to me, if I disappear or if they find my body somewhere strange, I want you to have this. It explains everything. Where I went, what I experienced, why I made the choice I made." "Evan, what are you planning?" "I'm not planning anything. I'm just preparing for possibilities." He gave me a sad smile. "The connection is broken, but the door is still there. It's always there, at the right depth, in the right locations, and I know how to find it. I'll always know how to find it." He left before I could respond, and I never saw him again. That was 6 months ago. I kept the envelope he gave me, stored safely in my personal files. I haven't opened it. I'm not sure I want to know what's inside, what choice he was referring to. But 3 days ago, I received a call from the Coast Guard. They'd found a dive suit washed up on a beach in Nova Scotia. Empty, undamaged, but no sign of the diver who'd been wearing it. The suit was registered to Evan Cole. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he found his way back to that other space, if he's there now with all the others, connected and never alone. I don't know if he's at peace or if he's trapped. But sometimes, late at night when the world is quiet, I swear I can hear it. That slow, deep breathing coming from somewhere far below. And underneath it, voices. Hundreds of voices, all whispering together in the dark. And sometimes I recognize one of those voices. It sounds like Evan. And it sounds like he's calling my name. Noah left the Pacific Ranger 2 months after the incident. He took a job with a land-based research facility in Arizona, as far from the ocean as he could get. Before he left, we met one last time to go over all the data we'd collected, to make sure every piece of evidence was properly archived and backed up. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked, "cutting the connection, stopping it from coming through?" "I think we prevented something that might have been catastrophic, or we prevented something beautiful and transformative. I honestly don't know anymore." The crew members who were connected, the ones who were speaking for it, Dr. Lin says some of them have reported lasting effects. Enhanced empathy, moments of shared consciousness, feelings of connection to something larger than themselves. Maybe it wasn't all bad. Maybe not. But it wasn't our choice to make for everyone else. That thing down there, whatever it is, it wanted to spread, to connect with more people, to bring more into its collective. And we couldn't let that happen without understanding what it meant. Noah nodded slowly. "I've been having dreams about it, about that space, that impossible geometry. And in the dreams, I can see all the people there. They don't look trapped or scared. They look content, like they've found something they'd been searching for their whole lives. Do you recognize any of them? Sometimes I think I see Evan, but I can never be sure. He's changed so much that I can't tell if it's really him or just something wearing his shape. He packed up his laptop and stood to leave. Marcus, promise me something. If you ever go back to that location, if you ever dive those waters again, don't go to 180 feet. Don't give it another chance to reach through. I promise. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Because part of me wanted to go back. Part of me wanted to understand what Evan had experienced, to see that other space for myself, to hear those voices calling from the deep. The Pacific Ranger has been assigned to different waters now, operations in the Caribbean where the depths are different, the conditions less extreme. The company decided that the North Atlantic location where the incident occurred was too risky, too prone to equipment failures and psychological stress on the crew. They marked it as a restricted zone in their internal databases, recommended against future operations in that area. But they don't truly understand why. They don't know what's waiting there at 180 feet in the dark water where reality grows thin. I've been back to that location 3 times since the incident. Not officially. Just private trips on my own time, chartering small boats, diving alone in violation of every safety protocol I've ever followed. I've never gone past 175 feet. Never let myself reach that critical depth where the barrier is thinnest. But I've felt it. The pull. The sense that something down there knows I'm near and is waiting for me to take that final step down into the dark. The last time I was there, 2 months ago, I brought an underwater camera. I let it sink on a weighted line to exactly 180 feet and left it recording for 30 minutes before pulling it back up. When I reviewed the footage later, most of it showed exactly what you'd expect. Murky water, particulate matter, occasional fish swimming past. But at the 23-minute mark, something changed. The water seemed to darken, to thicken. And in that darkness, shapes began to appear. Human shapes, or things that wore human shapes. They surrounded the camera, dozens of them, all wearing dive suits from different eras. And one of them, closer than the others, reached out a gloved hand toward the lens. I recognized that suit. It was Evan's Guardian Mk4, the same one he'd been wearing during his dive. The figure tilted its head, and through the helmet visor, I caught a glimpse of a face. It was Evan's face, but not quite. The features were right, but the expression was wrong, like someone had assembled it from photographs without understanding how human expressions actually work. The figure held up something to the camera. It took me a moment to realize it was a piece of paper, or something that looked like paper in that other space. Written on it in Evan's handwriting were 3 words: "Come join us." Then the image flickered and returned to normal murky water, as if those 30 seconds had been a momentary overlap between realities. I've watched that footage 100 times. I've analyzed it, enhanced it, tried to find some explanation that doesn't require accepting that Evan is still down there, still aware, still capable of communication. I haven't found one. I'm writing this account now as a record, as a warning, as an explanation for what I might do. Because the dreams are getting stronger. Every night now, I dream of that impossible space, of the figures standing in rows, of Evan smiling and beckoning me to join them. And every night, it gets harder to remember why I should resist. The loneliness of normal life has become unbearable. After experiencing even a glimpse of what Evan described, after feeling the edges of that vast connection, ordinary human relationships feel shallow and insufficient. I talk to people, I interact with my crew, but there's always a distance, a separation that I never noticed before but can't ignore now. We're all so alone. All of us trapped in our individual consciousness, able to communicate but never truly connect. We spend our whole lives reaching out to others, trying to bridge the gap, but we never quite make it. We're forever isolated in our own minds, our own experiences, our own limited perspective. But what if there was another way? What if Evan found something down there that could end that isolation forever? What if the entity in that space, lonely though it is, offers a solution to the fundamental problem of human existence? I've made arrangements, closed out my affairs, written letters to family explaining that I'm taking an extended solo sailing trip, time to clear my head and think about my future. They'll believe it. They've been worried about me since the incident. Notice the distance, the distraction, the way I stare at the ocean like I'm looking for something beneath the waves. Tomorrow, I'm taking a boat back to those coordinates, back to 47.3421 degrees north, 8.9847 degrees west, back to where it waits at 180 feet. I'm going to dive one more time. I'm going to go to that precise depth and I'm going to wait. I'm going to see if Evan was right, if the connection can be restored, if I can cross over to where he is now. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll surface after an hour and realize that there's nothing down there but water and darkness and my own desperate need for meaning. Or maybe I won't come back at all. Maybe I'll find that door, that passage between realities, and I'll step through into that impossible space where hundreds of others are waiting. Where Evan is waiting, where no one is ever alone. If you're reading this, it means I didn't return. It means the Pacific Ranger crew found this account in my apartment after I disappeared. It means I'm either dead in some tragic diving accident or I'm somewhere else entirely. If it's the latter, if I made it through to that other place, then know this: I didn't go unwillingly. I didn't go because I was deceived or corrupted or controlled. I went because I chose connection over isolation, because I chose to be part of something larger than myself, because I couldn't bear the loneliness anymore. And if you ever find yourself at 180 feet in those cold Atlantic waters, if you feel reality growing thin around you and hear voices calling from somewhere just beyond perception, you'll have the same choice I did. You can surface. You can return to the world of separation and isolation, where every human being is an island unto themselves. Or you can answer the call. You can take that final step down into the darkness and see what waits on the other side. You can stop being alone. The choice is yours. It's always been yours. But know that whatever you decide, the door is always there, at the right depth, in the right place, waiting for someone brave enough or lonely enough or desperate enough to walk through it. The entity beneath the waves isn't evil. It isn't malicious. It's just lonely, just like we are. And it's offering the only solution to loneliness that has ever truly worked: complete and total connection with something infinite and eternal. I'm going to accept that offer. I hope, wherever I end up, that I'll finally understand, that I'll finally know what Evan found down there in the dark, that I'll finally experience what it means to never be alone again. And if you ever dive those waters, if you ever feel something calling to you from below, remember, they're waiting. They've always been waiting, and they'll wait forever if they have to. Because in that space where time moves wrong and physics don't apply, forever is just another moment. And loneliness is the only real tragedy. I'm going down now. The water's calm, the equipment is ready, and I can feel it pulling at me, calling to me, promising me everything I've ever wanted, promising me I'll never have to be alone again. See you on the other side. Or don't. The choice is still yours.